And I'm coming to you today because we have a new blog post, and it's about today, Juneteenth. So this is perfect for those who want to teach their children to be woke, or homeschooling their kids, or you just want them to learn about Juneteenth in a way that is age appropriate. Yeah. So Juneteenth is about the freedom from slavery. When the Emancipation Proclamation was signed by then President Lincoln, of course, the South did not want to let go of the slaves, and they had a stronghold, so they kept the slaves working. So it wasn't until 2.5 years later that they really knew that they were free. And actually, we found out that there were some families even in the 1960s that were still on plantation. And I'm not talking about sharecroppers. Sorry, I'm not talking about sharecroppers. I am talking about families who thought they couldn't leave because they were threatened if they did in the 1960s. And generation after generation, they stayed on a plantation with that threat hovering over their heads if they left. And they finally were found out that they were actually free to go and didn't have anywhere to go or know how to even handle it, because for generations they had been on that plantation. And people want to know why we are arguing about plantations hosting weddings and why that's a bad thing. Okay, but either that's a whole other argument, so we won't go there. But I want to share with you the blog post that I did today. My background is education, so I'm here to teach. And I did a blog post called Juneteenth, 19 Real Learning Activities for Families. And I did this because I saw there was some posts going around with activities about Juneteenth that were basically Black history lessons, not necessarily specific about slavery. And as we know, in schools, a lot of white teachers have struggled with teaching this. I'm going to say struggled with teaching this topic because they have done things that have gotten them fired. I won't go into the details. You can Google that for yourself. So I wanted you to have something in your arsenal to teach your children. Now, with that said, teaching about slavery can be really difficult because there's so much horror in the topic. Young children should never be subjected to the horrors of slavery. I'm talking about especially children under the age of 6. From about 6 to 10, we still have to shelter them on what they see. But from age 6 and under, we are basically just building resilience, right? We're teaching them how to celebrate freedom for what they know that is, whatever they think it is, whatever we're teaching them that freedom is. One of the things they can learn about is that, freedom is a continuous process. It's never quite over, never stops. Freedom isn't free. You have to keep working at it, or else it'll be taken from you. So you can teach young children about being free when they see like animals in cages. They're not free. This is where they're free, and show them the contrast from the cage to the jungles or wherever they may live in their natural habitat. So freedom means that something is holding you back. They can learn that concept easily. Now, when you start talking about children ages 6 to maybe 10, your school age kids, they can start to learn a little bit more about slavery itself and how people were kept captive and how they were enslaved and trapped and given away and tricked in Africa to come aboard these ships, how they made it across the sea. I wouldn't get into the Middle Passage much with them because it is pretty gory, and you want to protect them from that, right? So I wouldn't get into that so much, but you can show them like the slave quarters and things like that. You can show them images of how Black people made America great by giving them the crops of cotton and all the different crops without any pay. And you can explain it to them like this: if you work for me, you want to get paid, right? Yeah. Okay. So what if you worked for me and I never paid you? I just fed you, just feed you and you do all the work, but I'm making money from what you're doing, but I never pay you. So I'm going to get wealthy. Probably in a month time, I'm going to be pretty well off, huh? Okay. Yeah. Well, maybe in a year from now, how well off will I be? Pretty rich, huh? Okay, I don't have to pay you, but I'm getting all the benefits from it. How about if I did that for 300 years, day after day, week after week, month after month? I'm going to be wealthy for generations to come. That's how you can explain that. All right. So with the older children, 10 and say about 10 to 13, they can Google, they can find things out themselves. So what you have to do is find out how much they know already and then go into it and say, okay, well, this is what I'm going to teach you about, and systematically teach them. Start with the Emancipation Proclamations or even before, and say, okay, Emancipation Proclamation, it didn't work. It was limited. What were Lincoln's motives? And I'm going to go over some of those activities as well. Well, when it was illegal, did it actually stop? No, it did not. What happened to the slaves after it? How do you think they felt when they found out they were free? You think they were scared? They didn't have anything. So what could they do? Now talk about some of the things they did do. Go into Black Wall Street and all of these types of things. And then what happened to that, So there's a lot you can do. But I want to share the page with you right now because I don't want this to be a long video, and I've already been talking for 6 minutes, so I don't want this to be a long video, but I want you to see what I did. So let me go here. I'm going to share the website with you, and so when you go to our homepage of successfulblackparenting.com, this is what you'll see. Nice little banner. You scroll past our mission, our story, the cover for this month. Have a look around our different columns. Just like a regular magazine, featured columns. These are our special ones. COVID-19 and return to school. If you need some information, there it is. But under recent articles, we have 2 Juneteenth articles. Juneteenth, 19 real learning activities for families is the one that I'm talking to you about right now. Also, Juneteenth, talking to Black youth about resilience is a really good article written by the APA Resilience Initiative. And it is... I think you'll find that very interesting and helpful as well. But here we get into the hands-on activities that you can do as a family. So I'm going to click on this, let it load. Now you can listen to this too. So if you're seeing impaired, maybe someone can help you find the listen button. I'm not sure how it works on your computer, but we have a listen button here too if you just don't want to read it. So it just goes in and talks about, a little bit about the history of Juneteenth. And that basically the reason we need to learn about this is because it's part of the Sankofa, right? It's a saying that says, you need to look to your past to know your future. And then there's another saying that says those who cannot remember the past are doomed to repeat it. So we don't want this repeated. So let's learn about it, right? So there we go. It tells you a little bit about Juneteenth some more. I encourage you to have your children to create book reports, diagrams, dioramas, poster art, triboard presentations, like kind of have at science fairs, or a PowerPoint presentation of some of the following activities. You can pick them. You don't have to do them all. You can take them and spread them out throughout the year because just because today is Juneteenth doesn't stop our learning about Black history. We need to keep teaching the kids. So the first one is read the Emancipation Proclamation. Read it. Well, it's kind of hard to read because this is what it looks like in the archives. Okay, so it's faded handwriting, but you can find the transcript for it at ourdocuments.gov. Read it and find out what it says. Ask your children these questions. Did the Emancipation Proclamation free all of the slaves? Why or why not? How many pages is the document? Who signed it? What did the document allow Black men to do that they could not do before? And why do you think this was allowed? Here's another one where we can talk about Abraham Lincoln because he wasn't the saint that we thought he was. But it's interesting to find out because this is what your children will learn in school, that he was the saint that freed all the slaves. That isn't quite true. So talk about President Abraham Lincoln and his possible motives for freeing enslaved people. Did this proclamation lead to his assassination? Most people don't put those two things together, that the proclamation likely led to his assassination. It seems like whenever a president signs something in favor of Black people, whether it was the Civil Rights Act or bill at the time, or the Emancipation Proclamation, they get assassinated. The History Channel is a good place to start with information about Abraham Lincoln. All right, the last slave ship, the Clotilda. So I'll put these links in here to help you parents. So if you don't know a lot about it, you should learn too. All right. So the Clotilda was the last slave ship to land, and it was during the time slavery was illegal, right? So that was the last one. And they're the people who have ancestors that were on the ship are still in that area. Then you can also read Zora Neale Hurston's book, Barracoon, The Story of the Last Black Cargo, which is the narrative of a slave who was on the last ship. So look at that's one thing you can do. You can discover the lives of former enslaved people by researching people like Frederick Douglass, okay? Henry Box Brown has a really interesting story. And Phyllis Wheatley, who's a poet, but she was a slave first. So read about that. La Amistad, there's a movie and everything about it, but it represents one of the most successful slave revolts. And here's the thing. I hear a lot of Black people saying, how come the slaves didn't do this? Or how come they sold people into slavery? How come they didn't do anything? They did. And your kids need to know that we were fighters. We were warriors. We fought back. So here it is, the Amistad Ship and Slave Rebellion. And this wasn't the only rebellion at sea. Can't go anywhere because of COVID too much, but you can visit the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C. online. Even though they don't have the 360 tour, which would be excellent, and I highly recommend they do that, you can visit their exhibits and collections, and you can peruse those on their website. Know the 13th Amendment, because the 13th Amendment is directly related to slavery, right? So it's really important because after slavery, we had Jim Crow laws, and then we had unjust prison sentences. So you can read this 13th Amendment. It's only one little paragraph. And then also watch the movie 13th by Ava DuVernay. It's for free right now online. You can get it. And I have the link there as well. Make sure your kids know differences in definitions, because they're going to be challenged as they grow older with my people were enslaved. No, they weren't. Your people were not enslaved. Indentured servitude is different from slavery. So make sure you go over definitions. They need to know the difference between chattel slavery, and indentured servitude. Those terms they need to be aware of when they're older. Another fun thing you can do, and young children can do this who can access the internet that are in like first, second grade, find out what Juneteenth celebrations are around you. I know it's a little late in the day because I'm on the West Coast over here, but you can do this now and plan for it next year. Find out about what Juneteenth celebrations are in your area, the place to go if you're in the area, or you just want to take a vacation and go with your family, or drive there if you're close by, not too far. Galveston, Texas, because that's where it was announced that the slaves were free. And that was the stronghold in the Confederacy. Once they announced that the slaves are free and ensured their freedom, that's when they celebrated. And Galveston, Texas has become the place, the Mecca, if you will, for Juneteenth. So there you go. Again, with definitions, slavery, not immigration. Make sure your children understand the difference between slavery and immigration. Goree Island played a major role in slavery in the Americas. Goree Island is in Senegal, West Africa. I went there. It's an amazing place. It changed my life. They should learn about it. There's a part in there called the Door of No Return. You should know about that. This is where most of the slaves in the Americas had to stay. It's like a holding place. And what got me about this place was the difference between the slave quarters and how the windows were even shaped. The windows are shaped to let the smell out, but barely any fresh air in. A little bit of fresh air, but mainly to let the smell out. And right above those dungeons was the enslavers' quarters, or the enslavers' headquarters. And it was beautiful. It was beautiful. So how did they sleep at night? I just don't know. But here's the thing, guys, too. And we do this a lot at Halloween. We dress up as pirates, Well, you know what pirates mostly traded? Us. They traded slaves. Pirates were the biggest enslavers probably in the world at this time, and especially the Portuguese. They were involved in this. So there were a lot of countries involved in this, but the Portuguese played a big role. Irish sailors played a big role in enslaving Black people. So to keep those things in mind, I will never, ever, if you ever see me dressed up as a pirate, you have all permission to slap me, because I'm not doing it. I just can't do it, because I know that they were the slavers. So why are we dressing up as pirates, y'all? Don't do it. Virtual tours of plantations. I know we have feelings about plantations, and here's how I solved that. because our history is still there, and they should be museums. But they're still around. Some of them are absolutely gorgeous, but you can visit them online. Places like Monticello, where Thomas Jefferson lived, and we know his history. He owned slaves, as we know. You could take a virtual tour, and they have rebuilt a lot of these slave shacks where our ancestors actually lived, and you can kind of get an idea what they look like. Also, George Washington's Mount Vernon is there online with 360-degree virtual tour. Now, here's the thing I ask is that we make our children little activists by, if you see any the flowery type of language on there about how slavery is pleasant or mutual, I can't talk today, excuse me, mutually agreed upon, then what I want you to do is have them write a letter. You can do it online, email, write an old-fashioned letter, send it snail mail, but let them know this is not acceptable. So you got to be aware of those things because you want them to be the change that they want to see and that you want to see. Research the middle passage. I highly recommend this for older children because it's a heavy topic and you only know if your child can handle it or not. So at the end of the day, when you finish all of these types of discussions, you want to make sure your child feels safe and let them know by being active or activist, it helps to keep them safe in the sense of they're making change. But you want them to always feel safe at the end of anything. If they feel like, can this happen again? Well, it can. That's why we're learning about it so that it won't happen again. If you know about it, you know what to look for. Why the Civil War was fought? It was fought basically because they didn't want to get rid of their wealth, and slaves were their wealth. All right. But you can look it up and research it yourself and then come up with what you want to teach. We should always discuss pre-slavery civilizations for the Black community because from the Moors to Egypt, even more places, we have so many inventors, discoveries, and contributions to the world. Know about the African queens who fought the enslavers. All right, we have some great stories here, some YouTube videos that I posted. One is really funny by a hair channel, actually, and the way she explains it is just so great. It's called African Queens Who Fought Slave Traders. I loved her video. It's so funny to me. And that she's just lighthearted humor take about it. So the older children will appreciate that a little more. There are cartoons on there for the younger children. And then it's just slavery throughout history, because you'll hear in this argument that, Jews were slaves. That was ancient history. We're not talking that long ago for African Americans, okay? So ancient history versus African American to modern slavery today. This is a timeline that can easily be put together and doesn't take long to do. And just what were some of the differences? So when your children are faced with arguments like that, they have an answer. They're not dumbfounded, okay? You have to know your history. Also, for older children who have, the attention span, Roots from 1977, not the TV show, the actual Alex Haley movie. You can binge watch it or take a few days to watch it, but it will give you feelings. It really will. So you might have to have a talk about it. Whenever you're watching a movie with your children, be ready to pause and talk if necessary. Another movie is 12 Years a Slave and even Amistad. Some of these movies are marked R because of the violence, and there may be some brief nudity like toplessness or something like that. There's implied rape. I've never seen rape actually happen in a movie that I can remember. So if you want, preview it beforehand so you can make an educated decision and show your teens this movie at your discretion and with your guidance, because you don't want to just turn on and leave them. You're going to need to talk about this. Slavery is still alive. We have an active slave trade going on right now in Libya and other countries. We have human trafficking. It's also known by, we have women being human trafficked right here in the United States. So that's a form of slavery. But specifically, Africans are being traded right now in Libya and some other countries like Israel and in, I think it's Saudi Arabia is the other one. So we have to be aware of these things and let our children know that it still is happening today. So these are 19 for June 19, 19 suggestions of different learning activities that you can do with your child. And from all age ranges, except for real little ones, I wouldn't do it with them. Real little ones, like I said, enjoy the festivities, celebrate, teach them about freedom and what we're celebrating freedom, and how you can teach that to them is easily via animals in cages versus animals in their natural habitat. And that we want to make sure that people are all free to do what they want. They don't feel as if they can't leave, they can't go where they want to go or do what they want to do. And we know that we're still fighting for freedom because we're sort of free-ish, but the fight is a continuum. It doesn't stop. And it takes each one of us to do our part to make sure that we are free, because freedom isn't free. It's going to take work, and we still have a lot of work to do. All right, that's it. I hope you enjoy that blog post. Please share it far and wide. If you know someone who's homeschooling, if you know someone who has kids home and they don't have anything to do, pass it on. The more people that know about it, the better for us all. It helps me as a small business. It helps you guys to learn. It helps our community. So just please share it. Drop me a line and let me know what you're doing with it. I really like hearing from you guys. All right, you guys have a great rest of the weekend, and I will have a new podcast for Back Talk coming on tomorrow, and we're going to be talking about Black children's books authors, actually the authors, not just the books, the authors that you don't know about yet that you need to know about, and I have a special guest coming on to talk about it tomorrow at 11 Pacific time, so that's 1 o'clock Eastern time, so I will see you then. Bye-bye.